शुक्लांबरधरं विष्णुं शशिवर्णं चतुर्भुजं प्रसन्नवदनं ध्यायेत् सर्वविघ्नोपशान्तये अनन्तसंसारसमुद्रतार नौकायिताभ्यां गुरुभक्तिदाभ्यां वैराग्यसाम्राज्यदपूजनाभ्यां नमो नमः श्री गुरुपादुकाभ्याम् अंजनानन्दनं वीरं जानकी शोकनाशनं कपीशमक्षहन्तारं वन्दे लङ्काभयङ्करम् कृष्णाय वासुदेवाय देवकीनन्दनाय च नन्दगोपकुमाराय गोविन्दाय नमो नमः गोविन्दाय नमो नमः गोविन्दाय नमो नमः. Namaskaram and welcome to the 13th session and the second part of Dasakam 11 of Nãrãyaneeyam. We saw in the last session Bhattadari describing the visit of Sanaka and his brothers to Vaikunta and the background of Varãhãvatãram. After Sanaka sages were stopped by the gatekeepers, the angry sages cursed the sentinels to be removed from Vaikunta to be thrown to the material world, where the living entities have three kinds of enemies in the form of gunas. After being cursed by the sages, Jaya-Vijaya pleaded, "It is quite apt that you have punished us for neglecting to respect noble souls like you, but we pray unto you for mercy, karunyam, that due to your compassion and our repentance, the maya or illusion of forgetting the Paramatma will not come upon us as we go progressively downward into material existence. O Guruvayurappa, Chandamarai Kanna, தாங்கள் நடந்தது எல்லாவற்றையும் மனதில் புரிந்து கொண்டு நன்றாக அறிந்த மாயாவை நீங்கள் லக்ஷ்மி சமேதராக பெரிய திருவடி கருடனுடைய அழகிய தோள்களில் கைகளை வைத்துக்கொண்டு அனைவருடைய மனதையும் கவரும் அழகிய வடிவினராய் சனகாதி முனியருக்கும் அங்குள்ள அனைவருக்கும் அந்த ஜெய விஜயர்களுக்கும் மகிழ்ச்சி அளித்துக் கொண்டு வெளிப்போந்தீர்கள் அல்லவா என்று வர்ணித்ததை நாம் பார்க்கிறோம். பிரசாத்ய கீர்பைகி துவதோ முனீந்திரான் பிரசாத்ய கீர்பைகி துவதோ முனீந்திரான் அனன்யநாதாவத பார்ஷதோபூதோ சம்ரம்ப யோகேன பவேத்ரி பீமாம் संब्रह्म योगेन भवेत्त्रिभिरीमाम् उपेतमित्यात्तकृपं न्यगादीः उपेतमित्यात्तकृपो न्यगादीः कृपो न्यगादीः. प्रसाद्य गीर्भिहि स्तुवतो मुनीन्द्रान् अनन्य नाथावत पार्षदौतौ संरम्भ योगेन भवैस्त्रिभिहि माम् उपेतमित्यात्त कृतं न्यगादीहि. அப்போது தாங்கள் தங்களை துதிக்கின்ற முனிசிரேஷ்டர்களை அன்பான வார்த்தைகளால் மனதை அமைதி உறச் செய்து வேறு எவரையும் தம் தலைவனாக ஏற்காத அந்த தொண்டர்களான அந்த பார்ஷதர்களை நோக்கி, நீங்கள் இருவரும் சம்ரம்ப யோகம் என்கிற பகைத்தல் என்ற யோகத்தை செய்து 3 பிறவிகள் எடுத்து கழிந்த பிறகு மீண்டும் என்னை வந்து அடையுங்கள். என்று கருணையுடன் கூறினீர்கள் அல்லவா? After pacifying the sages who began singing your great glory, you did comfort the two attendants of yours who have been cursed by the sages, and these attendants had no protector other than yourself. You told them to come back to you again after having spent 3 births as asuras, communing with you through confrontation. Sambrambha Yoga is communion with Bhagavan through confrontation.
Pumsam gatim mrigayatamiga yoga margaihi Pumsam gatim mrigayatamiga yoga margaihi Dhyanaspadam bahumatam nayanabhiramam Dhyanaspadam bahumatam nayanabhiramo Pausram vapuhu darsyamanam ananya siddhaihi Autpattikaihi samagunan yudhamashtabhogaihi Autpattikaihi samagunan yudhamashtabhogaihi
Pumsam gatim mrigetamiga yoga margaihi Dhyanaspatam bahumatam nayanabhiramam Paushnam vapuhu darshayanam ananya siddhaihi Autpaktikaihi samagruna yutam ashtabhogaihi. This is the form of the Lord which is meditated upon by the followers of the yoga process, and it is pleasing to the yogis in meditation. It is not imaginary, and it is indeed factual, as proved by great yogis. Bhagavan is endowed with 8 kinds of achievement, but for others, these achievements are not possible in full perfection. That is what Slokam 45 of chapter 15 in Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 3 says. யோக சாதனையால் அதை பின்பற்றுவர்களால் தியானிக்கப்படும் பகவானின் வடிவம் இதுதான். இதுதான் தியானத்தில் இருக்கும் யோகிகளுக்கு பிரியமான வடிவம். இத்தகைய வடிவம் கற்பனையானது அல்ல, முழுதும் உண்மையானது. இது மகா யோகிகளால் நிரூபிக்கப்பட்ட ஒரு உண்மை. இறைவன் 8 விதமான சாதனைகளை தனக்குள் அடக்கியவன். ஆனால் மற்றவர்களுக்கு இந்த 8 யோக ரூபமான சாதனைகள் தோஷமற்ற முழுமையில் பூர்ணத்துவம் அடைந்த நிலைமையில் சாத்தியமில்லை. The success of the yoga process is nicely described here. It is specifically mentioned that the form of Bhagavan as Chaturbhuja Narayana, 4-handed Narayana, is the object of meditation for the followers of Yoga Marga. In the modern age, there are so many so-called yogis, most of whom are self-proclaimed ones, who do not focus or target their meditation as prescribed in Yoga Sutras on the Chaturbhuja Narayana form especially. Some of them try to meditate on something impersonal or on void. That's what they claim. But that is not approved by the great yogis who have followed the accepted authentic method for several millennia. After the last 2 sessions, there were several questions from Satsanga members. To summarize them into 4 different categories, the first question was the need for Rupa Dhyanam beyond Nama Sankirtanam and Smaranam, and therefore in context, the second question, why Yoga Siddhi as an Upaya? And third question, how to select the right yoga method and the correct teacher. And the final question, what is the way of fixing the mind upon God beyond all these things? The answers are not that simple, are not even simple, and need a lot of analytical elaboration, especially from someone like me whose knowledge is extremely limited and theoretical at best. I will attempt to answer some of them, if not all of them, in an abridged form, yet within my great limitations. So many fake yogis are ruling the global field, filled with ignorant folks who nevertheless are genuine and serious to learn the authentic version of yoga. But these available fakes have named some of their yogas such as ice cream yoga, vinyasa yoga, hatha yoga, Iyengar yoga, Iyer yoga, in yoga, blue water yoga, kundalini yoga, slow flow yoga, swarupa yoga, heart yoga, laughter yoga, wine yoga, and even doga. Yes, you may have guessed it. Dog yoga, they call it doga. I'm not making this up. You can check on Google Ananda and you will see all the names appearing. Very sad indeed that many such unauthorized, self-anointed yogis even dare to say publicly that one can indulge in the habit of intoxicants to heighten the realization of the technique of meditation. Western world has caught on to another word similar to that called nirvana, and there are so many ads point to vanas such as karvahana and karvana, etc. A few days ago, the French police arrested an international fugitive in Paris who posed as a reputed yoga teacher for decades under a British Yoga Federation, along with 41 other accomplices for serious criminal enterprise posing as yoga teachers. Let me avoid names consciously. Such mushrooming of fakes internationally, globally, has brought so much serious discredit to the Yoga Marga, the divine Yoga Marga propounded by the lofty Sanatana Dharma. The real Yoga Marga process is to control the senses, sit in a solitary and sanctified place, and meditate on the Chaturbhuja form of Sriman Narayana, decorated as described in this chapter as Paramatman, appeared in Vaikuntha before the four sages, Sanakadi Munihi. Despite all the allurement of yoga practice, Ashtanga Yoga, the 8 kinds of yogic perfections, are hardly perfected by the common man, as Sukha said to Parikshit in chapter 15. But here it is described that Bhagavan, who appeared before these 4 sages, is himself full of all those 8 perfections. The highest yoga marga process is to concentrate the mind 24 hours a day on Bhagavan Krishna or Narayana or Vishnu, as you deem to call him or feel closer to the divine form of your preference and comfort. This is Bhagavat Smaranam. The yoga system as described in Srimad Bhagavatam and Bhagavad Gita, or as eloquently explained and recommended in the Patanjali Yoga Sutras, is different from the ones preached and practiced by many of the modern yoga teachers, as it is generally understood or interpreted universally. Real yoga practice is to control the senses, as I said earlier, and such control is established only to concentrate the mind on the Narayana form of the Supreme Parabrahman. Nãrãyaneeyam, I already explained that. Bhagavan Krishna and all the other Vishnu forms with 4 hands decorated with Shankha Chakra Gada Padma are plenary expansions of Bhagavan Krishna as beckoned by Draupadi in that Kaurava Sabha. Shankha Chakra Gada Bani, Dwaraka Nilaya Achyuta, Govinda Pundari Kaksha Rakshamam Sharanagata. In Bhagavad Gita, it is recommended that one meditate upon the form of the Lord. It is in chapter 6 of Bhagavad Gita, in sloka 15 says, Yunjannayamam sadatmanam yogi nedamanasaha shantim nirvana paramam mat sammastam adigacchati. This is in Dhyana Yoga. Thus, constantly keeping the mind absorbed in me, the yogi of disciplined mind attains nirvana and abides in me in supreme peace. This is what Krishna says to Arjuna. And then comes the question, why Rupa Dhyana? Varieties of techniques for meditation exist in the world. There are Zen techniques, Buddhist techniques, Tantric techniques, Taoist techniques, the most pronounced globally and most authentic for countless millennia being Vedic techniques of yoga. Each of these techniques has many sub-branches. Amongst the followers of Hinduism, especially Hinduism is a modern word, Sanatana Dharma itself, there are innumerable techniques being practiced. Which of these should we adopt for our personal practice? Sri Krishna makes this riddle easy to solve. We don't have to search for answers elsewhere. In Bhagavad Gita, he stresses that. He states that the object of meditation should be God Himself and only God. The aim of meditation is not merely to enhance concentration and focus, but also to purify the mind to perceive that Brahman. Meditating on the breath, chakras, void, flame, etc., are helpful in developing focus. I am not denying it. I have no contest in such approach. However, the purification of the mind is only possible when we fix it upon an all pure object, which is Paramatman himself, and you need to really put that focus on something of your choice. Call it Vishnu, Narayana, Krishna, or any other form of Paramatman. And if you are able to focus your mind completely on that pure object, namely the Paramatma Swarupam, then you have achieved your purpose. In Bhagavad Gita, verse 14.26 helps with our understanding. Mam chayoho avyabhicharena bhakti yogena sevate sagunan samathityaitan brahma bhuyaya kalpate. Bhagavan is beyond the three modes of material nature. And when one fixes the mind upon him, it too rises above the three modes. In other words, the mind goes beyond the three modes. Thus, meditating upon the pranas may be called spiritual by its practitioners, but true transcendental meditation can only be God and God alone. Now, what is the way of fixing the mind upon God? We can make all of God's divine attributes, names and forms and virtues and pastimes and abodes, associates, which are all the objects of meditation. They are all non-different from God per se and replete with all Bhagavan's energies. Hence, devotees may meditate upon any of these and get the true benefit of meditating upon God directly. In the various bhakti traditions in India, the name of God is made the basis of contemplation. I can give you an example. This is not an abstract philosophy. Goswami Tulasi says, Brahma Ram Tenu Namu Bhara Bharadayaka Bharadani. God's name is bigger than God himself in terms of its utility to the souls. Remember, in terms of its utility to the souls, God's name itself is bigger than God himself, because the goal is reached through the name. Taking the name is a very convenient way of remembering God, since it can be taken anywhere and everywhere, while walking, talking, sitting, eating, etc. We will enjoy this more when we come to Ajamalopakhyanam. However, for most of the bhaktas, the name by itself may not be sufficiently attractive for enchanting the mind to be totally one with the Lord. Due to samsara and the endless life cycles, the mind is naturally drawn to various forms, otherwise we are unable to concentrate on a formless God. Using the form of God as the basis, meditation becomes natural and easy flowing. This is Rupa Dhyana Sadhana. We have talked about this during Ashtanga Yoga in an overview, but I am specifying it here. To practice concentration of the mind, one has to sit with the head and back in a straight line, and one must practice in a secluded place, sanctified by a sacred atmosphere. The yogi should observe the rules and regulations of Brahmacharya to strictly live a life of self-restraint and celibacy. One cannot practice yoga in a congested city, living a life of extravagance, including unrestricted basal indulgence and adultery of the tongue in particular. Yoga practice necessitates controlling the senses, and the beginning of sense control is to control the tongue. One who can control the tongue can also have control over all other senses. One cannot allow the tongue to take all kinds of forbidden food and drink and at the same time advance in the practice of yoga. It is a very regrettable fact that many unauthorized yogis come to the Western countries with little or no serious training and exploit people's inclination towards yoga practice, about which I said extensively earlier. Real yoga is to search out the Chaturbuja Narayana, the super soul within one's heart, and see him perpetually in meditation. Such continued meditation is called Samadhi, and the object of this meditation is Srimad Narayana with bodily decorations as described in this chapter of Srimad Bhagavatam. If, however, one wants to meditate upon something impersonal, it will take a very long time before one achieves success in yoga practice. Barring rarest of rare exceptions, one cannot concentrate one's mind on something void. True yoga is to fix the mind on the form of the Lord. That is why we have been repeatedly saying attractive form of Chaturbuja Narayana, who is himself seated in everyone's heart. Such a yogic practice of Samadhi Dhyana without any desire makes one realize the principle that Krishna taught to Arjuna in Sloka 61 of chapter 18.
Ishvara sarvabhutanam Ishvara sarvabhutanam Idrise Arjuna dishtati Ishvara sarvabhutanam Idrise Arjuna dishtati Brahmayan sarvabhutani Yantrarudani Mayaya Manmana Bhavavat Bhaktau Madhyajimam Namaskuru Mameva Aishyasi Yutvaivam Atmanam Matparayana Igaiva Tairjita Sargo Yesham Samye Titam Manaha Nirdosham Hi Samam Brahma Tasmad Brahmani Te Stita
Ishvara Sarvabhutanam Idrise Arjuna Tishtati. Brahmayan Sarvabhutani Yantrarudani Mayaya. The Supreme Being is situated in everyone's heart, O Arjuna, and is directing the wanderings of all living entities, who are seated as on a machine made of the material energy. Manmanamam Madbhakto Madhyaji Mam Namaskuru. Mameva Aishyasi Yuktvaivam Atmanam Matparayana. We saw this earlier in chapter 9 of Bhagavad Gita, Sloka 34. Engage your mind always in thinking of me. Become my devotee. Offer obeisance to me and worship me. Manmana mama bhaktattau. Manmana bhava mad bhakto. Manmana bhava mad bhakto madhyaji mam namaskuru. Being completely absorbed in me, surely you will come to me. You have no other choice. Ihaiva tairjitaha sargo yesham samye sitam manaha nirdosham hi samam brahma tasmad brahmani te stitaha. This is in the earlier part of Gita in the 5th chapter. For this, the explanation is given by Prabhupada, who explains it this way. Those whose minds are established in sameness and equanimity have already conquered the conditions of birth and death. For them, birth and death never scare them. They too are flawless like Brahman because they have actually become Brahman, and thus they are already situated in Brahman. Parabrahman then turns his attention fully to Sanakadi yogis, which Sukha reiterates to Parikshit. Etau suretaragatim pratipadya sadhyaha samramba sambrita samadhya anubadha yogau bhuyaha sakasa mupayasyata asiyovaha chapo mayaiva nimitaha tadadveta vipraha. O Brahmanas, know that the punishment you inflicted on them was originally ordained by me. This is how Bhagavan replies to Sanakadi munis. And therefore, they will fall to a birth in a demonic family. This is Canto 3, Chapter 16, Sanaka and Bhagavan Samvadam. But Bhagavan clarifies it by continuing, but even though you curse them to become demons, they will be firmly united with me in thought all the time of their births through mental concentration, only intensified by anger, and they will return to my presence very clearly after those 3 births. Sambramba yogaha krodaveshena samruddhoyaha samadhihi ekagratatena anubaddo tridikruto yogaha. அளவு கடந்த சினத்தினால் பெருகிய பகைமே என்கிற நிலைமை மனது இறுகி உண்டாகும் நிலையே அந்த சம்ரம்ப யோகம். காமத்தால் கோபியரும் அச்சத்தால் கம்சனும் பகமையால் சிசுபாலன் முதலியவர்களும் உறவின் முறையால் விருஷ்ணிகளும் நட்பின் முறையால் பாண்டவர்களும் உன்னை நோக்கி பக்தி செலுத்துவதால் நாரதர் முதலிய முனிவர்களும் பகவானை பரிபூர்ணமாக அடைந்தனர். ஆகவே எவ்வகையிலாவது பகவானிடம் மனது பரிபூர்ணமாக ஈடுபடுவதே போதும் என்பது நம்ம வைதீக மதத்தின் பரந்த நோக்கம். கடவுள் இல்லை என்று ஓயாது கூவும் அரசியல்வாதிகளும் சினிமாக்காரர்களும் ஏன் சங்கீதத்தை அபியசிப்பவர்கள் கூட இப்போது அது ஒரு விதமான ஃபேஷன், கடவுள் இல்லை என்று சொல்வது. அவர்களையும் கடைசியில் பகவான் நிச்சயமாக ஆட்கொள்வான், ஹிரண்யனியம் ஹிரண்யாக்ஷனியம் ஆட்கொண்டது போல. இங்கு பகைமையே யோகமாயிற்று என்பது கண்கூடு. ஜெய விஜயர்கள் ஆத்மாவுக்கு அழிவை விளைக்கும் சினத்துக்கு ஆட்பட்டு ஹிரண்யாக்ஷன் ஹிரண்யகசிபு என்று அசுரப் பிறவியையும், காமத்துக்கு ஆட்பட்டு ராவணன் கும்பகர்ணன் என்ற அரக்கப் பிறவியையும், லோபத்துக்கு ஆட்பட்டு சிசுபாலன் தந்தவக்ரன் என்ற மனித பிறவியும் அடைந்தனர் என்று ஸ்ரீமத் பாகவதம் 3வது கேண்டோவில் 16வது சாப்டரில் 26வது ஸ்லோகத்தில் சொல்லுகிறது. தஸ்மாத் வைரானு பந்தேன நிர்வைர்ண பயேனவா ஸ்னேகாத் காமேனவா யுஜ்யாத் கதஞ்சின் நேக்ஷதே பிருதக். Therefore, by enmity or by devotional service, by fear or by affection, or by lusty desire, by all of these or any one of those qualities, if a conditioned soul somehow or the other concentrates his or her mind upon Bhagavan, the result is one and the same. For the Lord, it is the same, because his blissful position is eternal to everybody, available to everyone, and it is never affected by enmity or friendship to Bhagavan. இதை தமிழில் சுருக்கமாக சொல்ல வேண்டும் என்றால், பகையாலோ பக்தி தொண்டாலோ பயத்தாலோ பாசத்தாலோ காமத்தாலோ இவை அனைத்தினாலோ அல்லது அந்த குணங்களில் ஏதேனும் ஒன்றாலோ எப்படியாவது தன்னடக்கம் காரணமாக தங்கள் மனதை அந்த பகவானிடம் ஒருமுகப்படுத்தினால் விளையப்போகும் விளைவு என்பது ஒன்றுதான். அது பரமாத்மனுக்கு அவனது பேரின்பு நிலையால் பகையும் நட்பும் ஒன்றுதான். ஏனென்றால் எதுவுமே அவனை பாதிப்பதில்லை.
त्वदीय भृत्यावत कश्यपाक्तौ सुरारि वीरा उदितौ दितौ द्वौ. त्वदीय भृत्यावत कश्यपाक्तौ सुरारि वीरा उदितौ दितौ द्वौ. संध्या समुत्पादन कट्टचेटौ यमौ च लोकस्य यमाविवान्य. संध्या समुत्पादन कट्टचेटौ यमौ च लोकस्य यमाविवान्य.
மேலும் பட்டதிரி சொல்லுகிறார், त्वदीय भृत्यावत कश्यपात्तौ सुरारि वीरा उदितौ दितौ द्वौ संध्या समुत्पादन कष्टचेष्टौ यमौ च लोकस्य यमाविवान्यौ. பிறகு தங்களது தொண்டர்களான அவர்கள் இருவரும் காஷ்யப மகரிஷிக்கு திதி தேவியிடம் புத்திரர்களாக, அசுரர்களாக, வீரர்களாக உதித்தார்கள். மாலை காலத்தில் பண்ணப்பட்ட ஒரு தவறுதலால் தீய செயல்களை புரிவர்களாக இரட்டையர்களான அவர்கள் உலகத்துக்கு 2 யமன்களைப் போல் வந்து சேர்ந்தனர் என்கிறார் பட்டதிரி. In chapter 14 of Canto 3 of Srimad Bhagavatam, Shuka dedicates 51 slokams. First about Maitreya Vidura Samvadam on the cause and effect of the birth of the first and most significant avatara, namely Varãhãvatãram, reincarnation of the cosmic boar, Varaha. Vidura asks Maitreya, why should Parandama become a wild boar of cosmic proportions to quell an asura? And what has that got to do with the birth of an indestructible Prahalada? ஒரு அவதாரத்துக்கும் இன்னொரு அவதாரத்துக்கும் என்ன பிணை என்கிறார். Can you re-narrate the epic fight between the boar and demon Hiranyaksha, as originally extolled by Brahma to his disciple, and thereafter what happened to create another avatara with a man-lion situation? These are all the questions. For want of time and space, I will summarize the events narrated in Srimad Bhagavatam over 51 slokams. Just only take the summary of it. Maitreya continues, responding like this. Oh, great sage Vidura, the Diti, one of the 13 daughters of Daksha Prajapati, who was married to Maharishi Kashyapa, overcome by uncontrollable lust, pleads with the vulnerable Rishi to have union at the Sandhya Kalam, which is a prohibited time, as per Vedic tenets. Kashyapa attempts to convince her to get over the shameful act, but after so much hitopodesham, he could not convince her anymore, but being a dutiful husband, obliges her, but warning her that any children conceived during those inauspicious hours would only become detestable, and then she would conceive contemptuous sons born of her condemned womb, causing lamentation to all the 3 worlds. Nevertheless, because of your lamentation, penitence, and proper deliberation, and also because of your unflinching faith in Supreme Parandama, and your adoration for Lord Shiva, as well as to me as your husband, Prahlada, one of the sons to be born to your another Daitya son, Asura Hiranyakashipu, will be one of the greatest devotees of Bhagavan Narayana in all the yugas to come, and his fame will be spread equally with that of Brahman himself, and you will be responsible. Because Prahlada's father Hiranyakashipu will be the other Asura's son that you will be begetting because of the action of yours.
Shutva Bhagavatam Pautramamodita Dishadbrisham Pautramamodaditibrisham Putrayoho Vadam Krishnadvitva Vitvasim Mahamanaha
So Maitreya continues, Shrutva Bhagavatam Pautram Amodata Ditirbrisham Putrayoscha Vadam Krishnad Viditvasin Mahatmanaha. Maitreya says, hearing that her grandson would be a great devotee and that her sons would be killed by Krishna, Diti felt pleased that at least this part of it is assured by my husband. She was very pleased. Shuka makes elaborate descriptions of how the offspring that would be born to Diti after her blunder, forcing her husband, and the first 14 slokams of the 17th chapter talk about the serious consequences faced by the inhabitants of the world because of Diti's action. We can learn from the description of Srimad Bhagavatam that it is because of the birth of two great demons that there were so many natural disturbances in that yuga. It is to be indirectly understood, as previously described, that when there are constant disturbances on the earth, that is an omen that some demonic people have been born, or that the demonic population has geometrically increased. In the past, there were only two demons of such nature, those born of Diti. Yet there were so many disturbances to the entire Prapancham. At the present day, of course, especially in this age of Kali, over the last several decades, these disturbances have always been very visible and one can feel it, which indicates that the demonic population has certainly increased exponentially, being Kali Yuga. A case in point is in every continent, but more specifically in this continent, and what has been happening over the last 6-7 years is nothing but an explanation of what I explained just now. One can only expect such exponential deterioration if and when most of the population becomes unspiritual or turns unspiritual and essentially lacks morals to stand up against autocracy and bad behavior. The sloka 15 of chapter 17 in 3rd canto Srimad Bhagavatam summarizes the whole thing. Tishtva anyamsa mahotpatan Ata tattva vida prajaha Brahmaputra nrite bita menire vishwa samplavam. Marking these and many other omens of evil times, everyone but the 4 sage sons of Brahma, namely Sanakadi munis, who are aware of the fall of Jaya and Vijaya and of their birth as Diti's sons for a reason, everyone was seized with fear. They did not know the secrets of these portents and thought that the dissolution of the universe was already at hand.
Hiranyapurva kashipukkilaikai paro hiranyaksha iti pratita ubau bhavannatam aseshalokam rushanyarundayam nijavasanandau Rushanyarundam Nijavasanandau.
Hiranyapurvaha kashipuhu kilaikaha paro hiranyaksha iti pratitaha ubau bhavannatam aseshalokam rushanyarundam nijavasanandau. This was the 8th sloka from Bhattadiri. அவர்களில் ஒருவன் ஹிரண்யகசிபு என்றும் மற்றவன் ஹிரண்யாக்ஷன் என்றும் பிரசித்தி அடைந்தார்கள். அவர்கள் இருவரும் தங்கள் அசுரத்தன்மையினால் மதி இழந்து அகங்காரத்தினால் தங்களையே இறைவனாக பிரகடனம் செய்து கொண்டு அனைத்து உலகங்களையும் கடுஞ்சினங்கொண்டு துன்புறுத்தினார்கள். These asuras became notorious as Hiranyakashipu and Hiranyaksha. Obsessed by their inherent vasanas, they engage themselves in cruel oppression due to ahankaram, oppression of the world that have you as their master. Chakre Hiranyakashipu Dorbhyam Brahma Varenacha Vase Sampalan Lokam Streen Akuto Mriturundataha. The elder of the two, Hiranyakashipu, was unafraid of death from anyone within the 3 worlds because he received a benediction from Lord Brahma. He was proud and puffed up due to his benediction and was able to bring all 3 planetary systems under his control. It was Bhagavan's plan to teach people that even Hiranyakashipu born in Satya Yuga, the oldest Yuga, where Dharma was predominant, and Hiranyakashipu, being so powerful and strongly built and had all the boons conceivable, even then he could not live more than his destined duration of his life. One may become as strong and puffed up as Hiranyakashipu and bring under one's control all of the 3 worlds, yuga after yuga, right up to Kali today, including the current times, that there is no possibility of continuing life eternally or keeping the conquered booty forever in their possession. So many emperors have ascended to power. They are all defamed, shamed, lost all power, lost in oblivion. So many leaders have followed the same fate. That is the history of the world for tens, if not hundreds of millions of years. The people are not really that much knowledgeable. At least they can go and look through the world history in the last 100 years and you have clear-cut answers.
Tayo-Hiranyaksha Mahasurendra Rãnãyaneeyam Avaptavairi Bhavatpriyam Shmam Salile Nimajya Chatara Garvadvinandan Gadavane Chachara Garvadvinandan Gadavan.
Tayo-Hiranyaksha Mahasurendro Rãnãyaneeyam Avaptavairi Bhavatpriyam Shmam Salile Nimajya Chachara Garbhat Vinadan Gadavan. அவ்விருவர்களிலும் இரண்யாக்ஷன் என்ற பேரரக்கன் போர் புரிய பல இடங்களிலும் தேடி ஓடி அலைந்து திரிந்தும் தனக்கு சமானமான பகைவன் ஒருவனையும் காண முடியாமல், பகவானே, உங்கள் மனைவியான பூமாதேவியை கவர்ந்து எடுத்து அவளையே நீரில் மூழ்கிவிட்டு கதாயுதத்தை கையில் ஏந்தி மிகுந்த செருக்கினால் சத்தம் செய்து கொண்டு உலகங்களை சுற்றித் திரிந்தான். பவத்பிரியாம் க்ஷ்மாம் சலிலே நிமஜ்ய Chachara Garvad Vinadan Gadavan. Of those two, Hiranyaksha, with increasing arrogance, wandered all over the world in search of a worthy foe after immersing goddess Earth, Bhumadevi, your dear wife, in cosmic waters, strutted about, mace in hand, roaring in overwhelming pride. But he could not find any enemy. So he considered himself as the invincible hero of the world and entered the ocean for Jalakrida. Through that path, he reached Vibhavari, the capital of Varuna, and challenged Lord Varuna for battle. Varuna, suppressing anger somehow, told Hiranyaksha, I am now spending my time peacefully without indulging in any war and activities connected with it. There is only one match for you. I am not a match for you. There is only one match for you, for your prowess, and that is Vishnu, the Supreme Being. You are not invincible. There is one who could annihilate you. Your arrogance will be destroyed while you meet him. Hearing this, the demons started wandering in search of you. This is all Varuna said. There is a match, that is Vishnu. He did not give too many details.
Tato jaleshat sadrisam bhavantam Tato jaleshat sadrisam bhavantam Nishamya babram Gaveshayam tvam Bhaktaika drishyahasa Kripanidetvam Nirundirogan Marudalayesam Nirundirogan Marudalayesha Marudalayesha Marudalayesha.
Tato jalesat sadrisham bhavantam nisamya brabhrama gaveshayam stvam bhaktaika drishyahasa kripanidetvam நிருந்திரோகான் மருதாலயேச. அப்போது வருணதேவன் வாயிலாக தாங்கள் தான் அவனுடைய பலத்துக்கு நிகரானவர் என்றதை கேட்டறிந்து தங்களை தேடி சுற்றி சுற்றி திரிந்தான். உலகங்கள் எங்கும் தேடி திரிந்தான், எங்கே அந்த விஷ்ணு என்று. கருணை கடலான குருவாயூரப்பா, பக்தனால் மட்டும் காண்பதற்கு உரிய தாங்கள் அவனுக்கு தரிசனம் தரப்போகிறீர்கள் நிச்சயமாக. அதற்கு முன் என் நோய்களை தீர்த்தருள வேண்டும் என்று வேண்டுகிறார் பட்டதிரி கடைசி ஸ்லோகத்தில். Hiranyaksha, with increasing arrogance, wandered all over the world in search of a worthy foe after immersing goddess Earth in cosmic waters. But he couldn't find any. So he considered himself as the invincible hero of the world and entered the ocean for sport. Through that path, he reached Vibhavari, the capital of Varuna, and challenged Lord Varuna for a battle. Varuna, suppressing his anger somehow, told Hiranyaksha, I am now spending my time peacefully, without indulging in any war and activities connected with it. There is only one match for you, and that is Vishnu, the Supreme Being. That was his answer. O Guruvairappa, you are the ocean of mercy, whom bhakti alone can reveal. May you thou be pleased to ameliorate my ailments. Sukamahamani says to Parikshit, O Rajan, Lord Varuna said this to the demon. Tam Veeram Arad Abhipadya Vismayaha Saishyase Veerasaye Swabhirbhutaha Yasvat Vidanam Asadam Prashantaye Rupani Datte Sad Anugrahechaya. Hey Asura, on reaching him, you will be rid of your pride at once. This is what Varuna says according to Sukha. On reaching him, you will be rid of your pride at once and will lie down on the field of battle surrounded by dogs for eternal sleep. Your body doesn't need to be buried or does anything. Dogs will be eating up your body because of all the atrocities you have been committing. It is in order to exterminate wicked fellows like you and to show his grace to the virtuous that he assumes his various incarnations, but you will come to know of it. He doesn't tell him in clear-cut language. Varuna did not mention the name of Varaha since he wanted the Asura to roam around in absolute fear and confusion as to how the peril is going to come to him in what form. Asuras, due to their ahankaram, do not realize that their bodies consist of the 5 elements of material nature, and that when they fall, they become objects of feast for dogs and vultures. Because for them, there is no discrimination. The wild dogs and vultures eat anything. The demon roared at Varuna, but started wandering, searching for you, O Nãrãyaneeyam. Thank you for attending the satsangam, and we will see more in the next Dasakam. Narayana, 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 Narayana.
Narayana, 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 Narayana.